All right, are we ready for part two? This is part two of a three-part series on how to prepare for a job that you are applying for using AI. In part one, we went through how to very quickly go from you're taking your LinkedIn profile, turning it into a resume that meets a job that you want to apply for. We decided I'm going to apply for a founder in residence job at an AI fund. In this conversation, I'm going to show you how to prepare for your interview for that job. So let's jump in. And just to clarify here, I have not actually applied for this job yet. But for the sake of this conversation, I'm just going to walk you through what you would do. So I was looking at this job, founder in residence for an AI fund. And the first thing that I did was pull in this job description into a folder that I call Job Prep, where I have a founder in residence job description listed out here. Today, I'm going to help make a GPT to prepare me for this job. So the first thing I'm going to do in ChatGPT is basically use it to help me think like a recruiter so that I can get ready for this job description. So you are a recruiter hiring for a founder in residence at your AI fund. Here is the job description. What are the core skills and competencies you would look for in an ideal candidate? This is going to be like a really helpful starting summary. So I just asked this basic question and then I pasted in that founder in residence job. So here we have this initial starting point here. It's pulling in things from the job description that likely will be asked about in a candidate conversation. Entrepreneurial mindset, business acumen, product development, expertise, leadership and team building, marketing and sales proficiency, resiliency and adaptability, technical and analytical mindset, and visionary thinking. It's also going to include some leadership characteristics, and now it's pulling in an ideal candidate profile. I want to make sure that I'm coming into this interview as strong of a candidate as possible. So I'm going to help me figure out what I could do to prepare for that. So now let's take, and one of the things I know from having hired a lot of people is that one thing that really strong companies do is they make an interview rubric. So let's turn this into an interview rubric for each category. Include a 1 to 5 ranking of what to look for in a candidate across these criteria. This is something that recruiters will do anyway, and you can do it too as a job seeker to just preempt the work in that job process. Okay, so now it's taking all of those skills we talked about and it's creating like a 1, 3, and 5 ranking for what they would look for in a good candidate here. From entrepreneurial mindset to business acumen, it's going to pull through all these details. This is going to be very, very helpful for me as an artifact. So first, let's create this as an artifact. While it's generating, I'm just going to create the prompt for the next thing I want, which will be help me convert this rubric into a downloadable CSV file that includes all of these details in a table format. I just want it to be a little bit easier to read. And again, create this as a downloadable artifact that I can use to train a GPT against all this information. Oh, look at this. There's a scoring system. Fantastic. Okay, so it's creating the rubric. Now I'm already thinking about what are the other things I need as a candidate? Well, I need to know the criteria that they would look for, but I also would love to know what kinds of questions might I be asked about. So let's also start to think about what are 5 to 10 interview questions that a hiring manager for this role might ask a candidate to evaluate against this rubric. Again, I'm just preempting the conversation that is going to happen anyway. That'll be the next thing that I ask. As you can see, it's taking a minute to just pull in that CSV. Once I get the set of questions and the rubric, now I am in business to train a GPT to help me prepare myself as a candidate against that rubric. You can do this with any job. anywhere all the time. I'm going to be using the paid instance of ChatGPT for this because it's really helpful for me to create these custom bots and GPTs, but you could really do it with just a single instance like this as well. But over time, if you're going to be applying for a lot of jobs, it's probably going to be useful for you. Okay, now we've got this founder in residence interview rubric. Let's see what it looks like. Oh, it looks like I've never opened numbers here. So let's actually just upload this interview rubric into Google Sheets. And I'm also going to ask it in the meantime to come up with these interview questions. So let's see. I'm going to open this with Google Sheets. Okay. Now we've got, I will just format this to look a little bit better. Amazing. Okay, so we've got the categories on the left: entrepreneurial mindset, business acumen, product development, etc. And then against the top, it is the criteria for each of these and the rating. What I noticed it didn't include was that ranking scale. So I'm going to just scroll back up in GPT and find this scoring system. And I'm just going to paste this as a separate tab here. Again, it doesn't need to be perfect, but I do just want it to exist in some form so that when I train the model, it's like ready for it. Okay. And now I'm going to take this entire doc and I'm going to download it as a PDF so that I have it as an artifact, the scoring system and the rubric itself. Meanwhile, over here, I asked for interview questions. So now it's giving me interview questions about how to assess for these things. Great. Turn these questions into, okay. And these look pretty good. Okay. Now is where things get really fun. This GPT chat log and context has been primed with the job, with the interview rubric, and these questions. Now I'm going to ask it to create a prompt for me to train a custom GPT that will help me prepare. So write a prompt to train a custom GPT to play the role of an interviewer for this role. Include the questions asked and space for a candidate to reply to each question. At the end of the interview, evaluate the candidate based on a rubric. The custom GPT should. I'm just giving it this very basic information, but again, it already has some of this context. So now it's going to give me a prompt. Again, I'm just using this one window for all of this right now. Okay, custom GPT prompt, founder in residence role. So now it's generating a prompt. I'm going to actually just open up another instance of ChatGPT. I often will have them sort of side by side so that I can be using one window to generate the context and a second window to create a GPT. So I'm going to go to my GPTs, create a GPT, and I'm going to call this founder in residence interview prep bot. I'll use DALL-E to come up with a photo, and I'm going to say this is my personal mock interview prep bot to get ready for my founder in residence job interview. Okay, this instructions is now where I'm going to be pulling in all these details. It's still generating. This is a very detailed prompt and it's going to be great. So I'm just going to do this live just to see what happens. We can see that it has the description of the role itself. We can see that it's coming up with a script for an interview, and then it's giving all of these questions. So I'm excited to see what happens if I just copy and paste all of this in right here. And again, this is the exact same list of things. We can see all the questions and then the evaluation scale, the strengths to look for, and then the summary. Okay. The other things I'm going to include are some uploadable knowledge. So I'm going to include the rubric. I'm going to include the evaluation ranking. And I'm also going to include I'm going to download the job description itself, just so that I'm giving this as much information as possible. So let's see, job description. There it is. Okay. So now this is a bot that is trained to interview me based on a rubric that we've generated that's based on the job description itself. And now I can practice interviewing for this job. So I'm going to create this. It has all the details that it needs. I'm going to keep this just available only to me for right now. And again, you can take anything that you do in ChatGPT on the desktop version, like we're using, and immediately access it on your mobile version. And when I interview for jobs, I tend to interview in words as opposed to text. So the best way for me to prepare for this is actually going to just be practicing in real time. So I opened up the Founder in Residence interview prep bot, and I'm going to start the conversation here. Let's see what happens. We'll see if it goes through the script. Let's start the interview. I'll ask you a series of questions. Feel free to take your time answering them. Entrepreneurial mindset. I can answer this question on my phone here now. So I'm getting the same question here. I can answer this question. I have spent 15-year career working across tech startups and venture capital firms. Most recently, I've been working as a fractional operator across foundations and working with education and workforce nonprofits to help them better use and understand AI. This has been a project that's been under development for the past 9 months, and we are deploying our pilot phase right now. We're seeing that there's still a lot of questions about AI, both on the for-profit and nonprofit side, and I'm very excited to see how we can apply this in a private company context at a VC firm. Okay, that was actually like a pretty bad answer to that question, but it's good enough for this conversation. So when you say things into the bot, it will automatically transcribe it on ChatGPT because that's kind of how their mode works. And then I'm just going to refresh my screen here. And I will see this is the conversation that I gave. So it's going to actually take me through this interview entirely. I can go through the entire end of this, and then hopefully what will happen is I'll get a hire or no hire based off of that conversation. I've been doing these mock interview bots for several jobs now, and they're actually really fun because you can practice, you can get better at improving your work. In the next conversation, I'm going to show you how to then improve your answers to these questions by being a lot more strategic here. But that is the next step. So we'll end this conversation for now, and that is how you can create a quick and dirty interview prep bot for any job that you're looking for and hopefully get some real-time feedback.